Powerful debuffs, damage increases, debuff cleansing, and the ability to summon Phantom Foxes are all the things that gives Bora insane utility. But when she's built correctly, she becomes way better, which is why today I'll be going over how you can best build Bora. And starting off with all of her best artifact sets, with one of the best gear sets for Bora is going to be the armed gear set, as on the 2 set effect you can increase your attack stat by 5%, and because Bora is an attack scaler, it's going to be pretty useful. And then on the 4 set effect, basically whenever you attack, you can ignore up to 15% of your target's defense, which is always amazing. And we also have the toughness gear set, which is another amazing gear set for Bora, as on the 2 set effect you can increase your own crit rate by 8%, and then on the 4 set effect you can increase your own crit damage by 32%. And the reason why this gear set is actually going to be really good for Bora now, as with the recent changes to Bora's Phantom Foxes now being able to share some of Bora's crit stats, it does mean that the toughness gear set will also not only provide value to Bora herself, but it will also then provide a good amount of value to the Phantom Foxes that she does summon. And then the final gear set I'd recommend is going to be the Destroyer gear set, as this works really nicely, as the role that Bora plays within a lot of teams is sort of a supportive sub DPS role. And then with this gear set you can increase your own ultimate charge rate by 20% on the 2 set effect, and also you can increase your whole party's ultimate charge rate by an additional 20% as well on the 4 set effect, which is how this gear set makes Bora work as sort of like an ultimate charge battery. And then finally with the 4 set effect you can also just have 50% of your ultimate charge at the start of battle. And then for accessories, if you want to run her as more of a supportive role, then again the Outstanding Connection gear set will always be a top-notch gear set, as you can get up to a 28% attack increase on whichever character that you do bring in after Bora, which is going to make this gear set very good. And then if you want to run her as a DPS, you have the Expert gear set, the Executioner gear set, and also Champion on the Field, with Champion on the Field as well as the Expert gear set being more of a gear set tailored towards increasing your own attack stat whenever you do crit. And then the Executioner gear set, basically you can get up to a 20% damage increase when you attack enemies that have 70% or less of their HP. But the two I'd recommend the most are probably going to be Executioner or Champion on the Field, as the Expert gear set, you're not really going to have her on the field for long enough to make use of it, so I feel like Champion on the Field, if you want to increase your own attack stat, is going to be the best one. And then if you just want a flat damage bonus, the Executioner gear set will also be amazing. So then moving on, let's talk about all of the best stats for all of these gear pieces. And starting off with the main artifacts, we have the helmet, which on the main stat you'll always want additional attack or attack percent, as she is an attack scaler. As always, that for the body armor as well as the gloves, they always give you defense and attack. And then for her boots, you'll always want critical hit damage, as I believe her first dupe as well as also her exclusive weapon are all based around critical hits and also critical just hit damage and stuff like that. So critical hit damage on the main stat for the boots is always going to be good. For the necklace, you'll always get additional HP. For the bracelet, you'll always want dark damage percent, as she is off the dark attribute. For the ring, you'll want additional attack or attack percent. And then for the earrings, it will always be additional mana points. And then for substats, let's start off with the main artifacts, and pretty much it's just going to be very self-explanatory stats that you're going to want, with the most important ones being stuff like attack percent, crit rate, additional attack damage increase, and defense penetration. Those 5 are going to be the most important ones. And then the rest of the substats that you can get in the game are kind of useless on her. And then for the accessory side of things, it'll be the exact same things as the artifacts. However, instead of getting crit rate, you'll want crit damage, as if you didn't know, on artifacts you can only get crit rate substats, and on the accessories you can only get crit damage substats. And speaking of crit substats, let's talk about her best weapons, with obviously her best weapon, which is going to be her own exclusive weapon, which is called Solid Logic. And this weapon's actually pretty cool, as you can increase the user's attack by 2.5%, which goes up all the way to 10%, which is again why the armed gear set can be kind of cool. And then it also says any targets hit by the user's strengthening charm, which is one of her skills, you'll have both the damage they take from critical hits and the chance of them receiving critical hit damage is increased by 2.5%, which can also go all the way up to 10%. And this is why I mentioned before the toughness gear set can be really good on her, because you can benefit from a lot of crit stats with her, which makes this weapon the perfect one for her. And then the steel longsword I think is going to be the best free-to-play option, as you can increase your elemental weakness damage by 4.5%, which goes up all the way to 12%. And the reason why this is good is pretty much just one of Bora's skills that she does have will increase the amount of dark damage that you can do, which will then tie in very well with this weapon. Or if you just wanted some more crit stats, you could go for the steel bow, as you can increase your own critical hit damage by 9%, going all the way up to 24%, which is pretty good. And then of course, in order to make any DPS character much better, you got to level up their correct skills. But the first skill that I'd recommend you level up is going to be the Summoning Charm Phantom Foxes, which is just her second basic skill, as pretty much it will summon Phantom Foxes that fire magic arrows for you. And the reason why you're going to want to level this up is so then you can increase the damage that her Phantom Foxes do, as each magic arrow damage can go from 280% of Bora's attack all the way up to 420%. And then next I'd probably recommend her ultimate, which is Dark Charm Meg, especially if you go for a ultimate battery build, as the damage of this can go from from 3,270% of her attack all the way to 4,905% of Lee Bora's attack. And then her core attack, which is called Tracking Charm, is the next thing that I'd recommend, as pretty much this is one of her more useful skills as well, as pretty much whenever she uses Tracking Charm, Tempest, or Quick Attack Tempest, which are basically her core attack, her QT skill, and support skill, she can basically apply a 15% damage increase, taking debuff to basically any enemies that are hit by it, which does make her core attack a pretty useful way of applying the charm debuff, so I'd recommend leveling up quite a bit. And the same also goes for Tempest as well, as the QT skill also will apply the charm debuff. And then finally, to end off this guide video, we have all of her best teams and synergies. And one of Lee Bora's best teams is just going to be the full-on mono dark team, as of course with Lee Bora's strengthening charm, she can apply the enhancement circle that does increase dark elemental damage by 10% for team members standing in it. So then when you pair up characters like Hwang Dong-suk for your break damage, and then also Silvermane Baek Yoonho just for your actual damage, you've got a pretty good team right there. And then if you don't have or perhaps missed out on someone like Baek Yoonho, you could always go for a character like Kang Tae-shik, as with enough dupes, Kang Tae-shik also does offer a ton of damage with his ultimate, as well as also a very similar debuff to what Lee Bora can apply, as basically on Kang Tae-shik's third dupe, but he can apply a 15% damage taken increase to targets, which is always pretty cool, so you can stack that with the charm debuff. And then if you really wanted to, you could also use Lim Tae-kyu as another DPS option, but also someone that can inflict a decent amount of break damage, thanks to things like his core attacks, his second basic skill Typhoon Fire, and then of course his first basic skill Shoot Maneuver. And then another team that Lee Bora works really well in is a team that involves characters like Min Byung-gu and also Cha Hain, as in this team you have Lee Bora for damage support as well as also debuffing the enemies, alongside Min Byung-gu, who can also debuff the enemies whilst also buffing your whole team as well with crit stats, which is also what Lee Bora and especially Cha Hain do benefit from a lot. And then as for shadows, it's going to be pretty self-explanatory, as the two Shadow Authority leaders that you'll want the most are either going to be Igris or Blades. As with Igris's Shadow Authority, you can basically just get a crit rate increase, which is going to help your DPS characters like Lee Bora and someone like Silvermane Baek Yoonho, for example, have a much easier time with critting. And then the reason why Blades is so good is because you can just stack an extra bit of attack, which works very well with her exclusive weapon and also the armed gear set if you do want to use that. So I really think it does depend on what kind of build that you are running, whether you go for Blades or Igris, as if you're going for more of a crit build, Igris will be your best bet, or if you're going for more of an attack-based build, then I would definitely say Blades is your best bet. Which then leaves us with 4 other shadows that you can choose from, and I can't lie, I definitely think Iron is definitely one of the best shadows in the game, just with the fact that he has defense decreases, which a lot of the teams that involve Lee Bora won't have, so that's another way to debuff your enemies. And then finally you're left with 3 other options, which are either going to be Tusk, Blades, or Tank, and I can't lie, I actually really do like Tusk, as his concentrate heat being able to increase the attack stat of all of your shadows, I genuinely think he's going to be very useful. But if you went for Igris as your Shadow Authority leader, then I would probably still recommend that you do use Blade/Baraka, as his Frost Gazer does offer a ton of AoE damage. And if you are running a team that is revolving around Silvermane Baek Yoonho, he only has like a lot of single target damage, which almost makes Blades a must run, as Blades does have a lot of AoE damage. So there you have it for today's video. Lee Bora is definitely a character that I think is slept on quite a lot, and the fact that she has a lot of synergy with the mono dark teams, I do think it's going to give her a lot of longevity within the meta. But overall, if you did enjoy this video or you found it useful just in general, then don't forget to like and subscribe, as it does help a ton, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace!